All right, it's time to talk about potential 49ers free agents. We're going to take a look at the entire list of players who currently are not under contract for the 2025 season. They still remain under their existing contracts since the 2024 league year doesn't end until March. But the 49ers will have decisions to make on all of these players. And I think it's perfect time to discuss that with about 45 minutes to go before kickoff of the divisional round of the playoffs, the Texans and the Chiefs. So we'll take you all the way to kickoff, and then we'll migrate over to the living room, watch the game, and then reconvene after that game. The nightcap today, I'm really, really excited for that one. Washington against the Lions. In fact, this entire weekend is going to be really good. Rams, Eagles tomorrow, and then, of course, the grand finale of the weekend is Ravens, Bills. That is maybe the marquee matchup of the season, at least up until this point for the NFL. Anyway, this is the list that we're working with. Credit to Over the Cap. I took a screenshot of their page. So this way, we get to see the categorization of free agent for every single player. Not everybody is a unrestricted free agent. They also have some restricted free agents, pending restricted free agents, and pending exclusive rights free agents. So I'll explain the differences between all of those statuses and how the 49ers might have to act contractually. Also, on Over the Cap, they're able to give us the snap percentage of each player in 2024 combined with the APY of the current contract. So this is categorized from most expensive to least expensive. I could zoom in a little bit here, and you can see at the top of the screen, Javon Hargrave signed a $21 million deal worth $21 million annually with the 49ers, and he is their most prominent pending free agent alongside Charvarius Ward and Dre Greenlaw. All three of those guys are going to garner headlines depending on what is next for those players. So in the case of Hargrave, and I'm going to get right to this, we're going to go through all these guys. I'll give my prediction, stay or go. Obviously, don't religiously stick to this prediction. A lot can change. I'll give some of the context as we go through these things that's going to be facing the 49ers decision. But predictions always come with the information that we have at the current moment. And information is certainly going to change as situations do change over time. So keep that in mind as we go. And then you can ask your questions in the comment section, put them in as a super chat if you want priority, and we'll get through all the questions as we lead up to kickoff. Anyway, top free agent, at least in terms of money on his previous contract, Javon Hargrave only played about 10% of the snaps for the 49ers this season. The reason that he's going to be a free agent is because San Francisco decided to rework his contract, and I'll explain why. So in the case of Hargrave, they decided that they were going to hop in front of things. Last season, with Arik Armstead, the 49ers did not and were not able to get ahead of things. And what happened in the case of Armstead is that they came to Arik at, what was it? I think it was late February already, yes, because the 49ers were a couple weeks removed from the Super Bowl. This might have even been early March. It was actually early March. It was right before the start of the new league year. And they said, hey, we want you to take a pay cut to stay with us. You're still under contract, but we've run the numbers, and we've also recognized that you weren't all that available over the course of the past 2 years. Armstead had missed 13 games over the previous 2 seasons. And they said that the $17 million number at which he was going to be paid just didn't work for the 49ers. And they said, we'll offer you 6. So big pay reduction. Arik Armstead obviously was not happy about that. He ended up signing with Jacksonville for $14 million. I think the 49ers would have been willing to negotiate up to about $10 million for Arik Armstead per year. But obviously, he signed for more money on the East Coast, and that was that. I think there were some ruffled feathers throughout that process because the 49ers had just come off of a Super Bowl. Arik Armstead was a big contributor when he was healthy to the team. He had been one of the longest tenured 49ers. So just the whole way that it had to be handled, I'm not saying the 49ers could have handled it all that differently because they were in the midst of a Super Bowl run last season. But the whole way that it had to be handled was not exactly something that made every single party in this situation all too happy. And it wasn't a smooth process. And Eric Armstead obviously ended up signing with Jacksonville. In the case of Hargrave, he tore his triceps muscle way back in week 3. And the 49ers obviously were on life support when it came to their playoff hopes over the back half of the season. And I think that they saw the writing on the wall, and they also looked at the Javon Hargrave situation and realized that this is a guy who is going to be in a similar boat as Eric Armstead. Wrong side of 30. They'd love to have him back for the interior of the defensive line, but not at this number, not at the 21 million number that he was under contract for. So much of that 21 million at this point of the contract is not guaranteed for Eric Armstead, or for Javon Hargrave. So the 49ers went to Hargrave and said, hey, we're going to do what we did to Armstead. We're going to give you a post June 1st release, which allows us to shoulder some of the dead money hit through some of the signing bonus money that Hargrave had already gotten and had not yet hit the salary cap. We're going to push that dead money into the future, into 2026. So it actually saves us money to release you, but we would be thrilled if you re-signed with us at a more competitive rate. We can't afford you at your current number. It's not guaranteed. And we're offering this in when was it? I think it was in November when this happened. So Armstead said, yes, let's go along with my release. I'm going to test the open market. The open market for Javon Hargrave is officially going to be there come March. So maybe in March, once the bidding does begin, the 49ers offer to Hargrave, which I don't know, is it $6 million? Is it $8 million? Maybe that one is going to be more competitive than the other offers that he fields, and he rejoins the 49ers. Or maybe it won't be. Maybe there's going to be a bad team that decides to pay above market rate for Javon Hargrave at age 32, coming off of the triceps tear, and the 49ers will politely bow out. This is going to be determined by the market, the top free agent. I will say that it is important to realize that Javon Hargrave is a plus pass rusher. He had 6 pressures in the game against the Rams when he got hurt. There's a lot of thought and a lot of talk online about him being some kind of scrub. He absolutely isn't. Javon Hargrave was a top 3 win rate pass rusher for the Eagles, and then that shifted to more like top 6 or 7 amongst defensive tackles for the 49ers over the course of his first season there, 2023. And then he seemed to be turning it up in that third game against the Rams before he did get hurt. So he is a potentially valuable piece. He just isn't a piece that's valuable at $21 million per year, which is why the 49ers are looking to adjust his contract. But he's got to agree to that adjustment. And if he doesn't agree, well, then he can open it up to the market. And that's what's happened. We've just fast forwarded to the part where it's going to be opened up to the market. That's where talks stalled with Eric Armstead this year. And we'll see if that's where talks stall with Javon Hargrave. I do believe that getting to the process sooner this time, because the 49ers were out of contention and Hargrave was essentially out for the season. He could have probably made it back for the playoffs, but it wasn't headed in that direction for the 49ers. So taking care of this on the sooner end might ensure that there aren't ruffled feathers like there were with Armstead, and it might make Hargrave more amenable to a deal to return to San Francisco. So this one to me is a little bit more of a toss-up, but I'm going to go ahead and just look at league trends in the past. And, you know, Hargrave has a good reputation around the league. There usually is a bad team in these circumstances that decides to pay a guy more money than he's worth, more money than the good teams at least think that he's worth. And I find it likely that that's going to happen with Javon Hargrave, and he won't return to the 49ers. So my prediction on Hargrave will be that he goes, although hopefully I illustrated the complexity of the situation, and you understand all that's going to go into that now. He's going to be on the open market, and the 49ers are going to benefit from the post-June 1st cut, which does free up a little bit of salary cap space in this 2025 cycle. Then we move on to Charvarius Ward. Ward was one of the best corners in the game in both 2022 and 2023. 2024, he obviously dealt with personal tragedy, but also ended up being a year of really good news for Charvarius Ward when his baby boy, Charvarius Ward Jr., was born healthy, without complications, late in the 2024 calendar year. There had obviously been a lot of stress leading up to that following the passing of his 23-month-old daughter, Amani Joy, which happened in fall. So just a tremendous amount of life events, some tragic, some miraculous, surrounded Charvarius Ward over the course of this past season, which makes his decline on the field make a whole lot of sense, right? So he mentioned at Locker Cleanout Day that he suffers from PTSD following Amani Joy's death that is location connected because she passed away in the Bay Area. So he said that every single time he flies into San Jose, that PTSD is triggered, just by being around where that tragedy happened. And he was quite frank with us, and that he said that that's going to make it tough for him to stay in the Bay Area because his girlfriend, Monique, doesn't even want to be in the Bay Area due to that PTSD. She's back in Texas. And Charvarius Ward said it was really tough to finish out the 2024 regular season apart from her because she didn't want to be in the Bay Area. So all of that, I just connected the dots to say it's unlikely that Charvarius Ward is back. I do think that we can expect a bounce up in play from him in 2025, since he shouldn't be dealing with just a horrific amount of personal tragedy that he was dealing with in 2024. But when talk of stuff like PTSD starts coming in, when talk of stuff like, oh, it's going to be better for my family in all likelihood if I'm elsewhere starts coming in, even though Charvarius Ward said that things can potentially change on that front, it seems unlikely to me that he'll be back with the 49ers. He did say that San Francisco made it fairly clear to him before all this personal tragedy at the start of the 2024 season that they weren't going to be able to afford him for 2025 and beyond. So, like I said, Charvarius Ward was tremendously candid with us, tremendously open about how this whole process might work. And coming off the All-Pro season in 2023, the 49ers did not believe that he was going to fit into their budget for 2025 because they have Deommodore Lenoir, who they paid during this season, and they have Renardo Green, who they drafted in the second round in 2024, ready to take over those cornerback positions. They still need a third cornerback. Maybe it's going to be Darrell Luter Jr. Maybe the 49ers go to the draft, but they did not think that they were going to be able to pay market rate for Charvarius coming off of an all-pro season. Market rate probably, as you can see here, he was a $13.5 million APY player over the past 3 years for the 49ers. I would say that with an all-pro under his belt, if you factor out the down year in 2024, would have been a $20 million player. So how much did this past year change things? Probably depressed Charvarius Ward's price a little bit. Did it bring it down enough to where the 49ers would even be willing to come to the table? I don't know. And I think that the 49ers would have to come to the table with a very, very serious offer for Charvarius Ward if he would consider staying in the Bay Area, which is something that he has already indicated that it is personally unlikely for him, right? So I will say no on my current prediction for Charvarius Ward. Then there's Dre Greenlaw, third free agent or potential free agent on this list. I think Greenlaw returns to the 49ers in 2025. And here's why. You got to check two boxes to earn a very lucrative contract offer in the NFL. At least in theory, you have to check two boxes. One is the box of explosiveness, especially for somebody coming off an Achilles tear like Dre Greenlaw was. He absolutely checked that box coming back against the Rams in week 15, late in the season. He was flying around the field over that first half. Greenlaw looked great. And based on that, teams will want him. Based on that, the 49ers will want him back in 2025. But the second box that you have to check is one of durability. Greenlaw only played 34 snaps this season. He played half that game against the Rams before he got a little bit sore, lasted only 4 plays the next week against the Miami Dolphins. So there's this big question mark right now about his durability because he came back so quickly. It was 305 days after the Achilles tear that he looked so damn good against the Rams. Because of that, to me, it just seems that he's not going to get this really lucrative multi-year deal. And if he doesn't get that, then approve it 1-year deals on the table. And I'm not talking a league minimum deal. I'm talking decent money, maybe a year, 6-7 million. I think he's worth more than Devondre Campbell was healthy coming into the 2024 season. But at a prove it level for a year, I think the 49ers can definitely find a way to afford Dre Greenlaw. And linebacker is such an important position on this football team. He was an $8.2 million player annually on the deal, which is going to be expiring in March. So given the injury, given the lack of snap count that we saw this season, does Dre Greenlaw approach that money at like I said, 6 to 7 to 8 million? And does he have a deal that doesn't have much longevity on it? Maybe just a 1-year prove it deal. I can certainly see that happening. Now, all it takes is one team, one bad team again, to blow things up and be like, here, Dre, here's a 3-year, $36 million deal. Are you going to sign it? And he'd be crazy not to sign a deal like that because, especially as you can see, things are so fragile in this league for players injury-wise. You have to get your money when it's there. I just have my doubts that a team would offer that to Dre Greenlaw following a season where he played only 34 snaps. So that could end up being good news for the 49ers, who obviously want to keep Dre Greenlaw around. But I think it's going to take a little bit of luck because, yes, they're trying to manage this salary cap situation as well as possible. But if I'm going to have to say yes or no, if you're going to push my back up against the wall and make me pick, I would say yes on Dre Greenlaw. Look who the next pending free agent is for the 49ers. Devondre Campbell. I'm going to go out on a limb here and guess that Devondre Campbell will not be back with the 49ers in 2025. Just a hunch on that front. I know I'm taking a risk saying that Devondre Campbell's not going to be back with the 49ers in 2025, but I'm going to put my reputation out there. In fact, I will bet my life savings on Devondre Campbell not being back with the 49ers in 2025. Next on the list, Isaac Yiadom. So Isaac, this was interesting. The 49ers were able to get him at a very decent rate considering how well he played for New Orleans in 2023. They got him at $3 million for the season. I think that the hope from Yiadom's perspective was that he would leverage this opportunity with the 49ers, one of their top 3 cornerbacks, into a deal worth at least 7 or 8 million per year. I don't think that he has done that. I think that he was the weakest regular 49ers cornerback on the field throughout this season. Renardo Green, the rookie, surpassed Isaac Yiadom over the course of the year. So I think that Yiadom has remained a $3-4 million cornerback. I don't think he'd be bad depth at all for the 49ers. And I think that if they can get him back at that price, at a similar price to last season, you love cornerback depth, they wouldn't say no. I'm not sure how he's going to be valued by other teams. I will say that the cornerback room performed better for the 49ers than the rest of the defense this season. So there's that relativity effect that we have to consider. But in the case of Yiadom, I would guess he has a year under his belt now, past the really, really good New Orleans season. I would guess that he does get offered 5 somewhere. And I think that would be over the 49ers budget. So gut feeling will say no on Isaac Yiadom returning in 2025. Then there's Jon Feliciano. Now, I mentioned this before. I was in contact with Jon Feliciano after he was not cleared to return this year. So they opened up his practice window and he tried to give it a go following the knee operation. He didn't play at all in 2024. And then finally they shut him down. They said, he hasn't hit the benchmarks and we can't play this year. He's not going to be able to come off of injured reserve. Now, this is a tricky one because John said on Instagram when he re-signed with the 49ers for 2024 that he was considering this the last ride. So he was planning to retire after 2024. So then I'm texting with Feliciano when he gets shut down. And the first thing he told me was, I think I'm going to try to give it another go in 2025. If you're talking about a 1-year prove it deal, I think Feliciano makes perfect sense for a 1-year prove it deal. Didn't play at all in 2024. Was a really good contributor for the 49ers in 2023. Ended up taking Spencer Burford's starting spot at that right guard position. And they like him in the locker room. And he's a versatile guy who's played center before. I would say 2 thumbs up. Yes, the 49ers will be able to afford and re-sign John Feliciano for the 2025 season. So that's Feliciano. Then we move forward to Josh Dobbs. Dobbs is a fascinating one because the QB rehab program for the 49ers has obviously generated some notable alumni, notably Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold, despite what the end of the season looked like, those final 2 games, made himself a lot of money this year. The 14 wins and the good play that we saw before the atrocious play at the end raised Darnold's stature. I think he's probably going to be a quarterback in the mid-range now. He's going to be bridge starter plus money in 2025. So we're probably talking somewhere around 30 million a year for Sam Darnold after he played on 10 million a year. So anyway, QB rehab program for the 49ers definitely worked in Darnold's case. I joked after he struggled to end the regular season and the postseason and those horrific losses against the Lions and the Rams. I joked that he had just played himself back into the 49ers QB rehab program. But unfortunately for San Francisco, it's not going to be the case. You're not going to be able to get Sam Darnold again at $7 million or whatever it was in 2023. So Josh Dobbs, now the question is, has Josh Dobbs' career been propelled forward into bridge starter territory? Because you've got several tiers of quarterback money. You've got your base backup, right? The base backup is going to be 2-3 million. Brandon Allen made about 2 or 3 million this past season for the 49ers. You've got your plus backup. Josh Dobbs made about 5 million. That's the category that he was in this past season for San Francisco. And then you've got your true QB rehab backup. So former top draft pick or very high draft pick. And that was what Sam Darnold was. And he had a deal that was worth up to 11 million incentives for the 49ers in 2023. Obviously didn't earn anything close to that. But the closer baseline price was like 7 million for Sam Darnold. And they were able to afford him in 2023. Then you have baseline bridge starter. That's about 10 million per year. That's the amount that Sam Darnold made for the Minnesota Vikings in 2024. On top of that, then you have mid-tier starter. So just your run-of-the-mill average quarterback, your Baker Mayfield, for example, somebody that's never really in the top 10 of the efficiency rankings, but is between 10 and $15 million, between 10 and 15 in the rankings. So that will be anywhere between 25 and $35 million. And I think that's where Sam Darnold is going to fall following the ghastly end to the season. I don't think that Darnold is going to move up to the really good tier of quarterbacks that are competing for the top salary every year. That's obviously where Brock Purdy is right now as that contract negotiation gets set to happen this offseason. But my main point is I just wanted to illustrate the tiers, because where's Josh Dobbs going to end up? Is he going to graduate to the next tier? Obviously, he's interested in graduating to base bridge starter material and make $10 million a year, just like Sam Darnold did when he left the 49ers for the Vikings. Has Josh Dobbs shown enough? I know that it was rather rough in that one start that he had against Arizona, turned the ball over a couple times. But sometimes it isn't just about that one start. Sometimes it's about what teams think that Josh Dobbs might be able to bring their QB room, since he's spent that season under Kyle Shanahan, under Brock Purdy. And if that's the case, then he will get offered 8 to 12 million from another team that wants a backup bridge starter. It will depend on where everybody's at, depending on, their draft picks and their quarterback plan moving forward. But I do think that the 49ers have a reputation now, given this QB room, given Brian Griese, who just turned down that New York Jets interview opportunity. And I think San Francisco's reputation will earn Josh Dobbs a promotion elsewhere in the league. Not to QB1, but he's going to be a bridge guy or a high-priced backup that's going to be out of the 49ers price range. So my guess is that Josh Dobbs is not back in 2025. Brandon Allen, I would think that Allen is back in 2025. I think that he was a $2 to $3 million guy this past year. About $700,000 of that was guaranteed. I don't see a reason why the 49ers wouldn't want that. If they could find a higher ceiling backup, kind of like Josh Dobbs this past year, and fill him into the quarterback structure, Brandon Allen could potentially be quarterback 3, but I do see Allen returning to the 49ers. Kevin Givens, free agent for San Francisco, interior defensive lineman, suffered through a lot of injuries this past year. I think that they could bring him back at a fairly reasonable rate. His APY last year was $2 million. If you can get Kevin Givens back at $2 million, you're going to do it if you're the 49ers. Demetrius Flanagan-Foles, 29 years old now, has been on that 49ers roster for several years running. Another player you could probably get at $2 million or a little bit less. I would think Demetrius Flanagan-Foles is back. He's also been a good special teams player for the 49ers. Aaron Banks. All right, this is why I don't think Aaron Banks is going to be back. I think Aaron Banks is going to command about $10 million on the open market. And I don't think that he was great for the 49ers this year, but there is such a shortage of offensive linemen in this league, competent offensive linemen in this league, that you'll see these free agent guards go for double digits in the millions. Like the Rams, they signed 2 guards. Jonah Jackson was one of them this past season, and they had to pay $15 million plus for those guards. So free agency is not a good avenue for acquiring mid-tier offensive linemen. And so neither is re-signing pending free agents if they're not great players, right? So the 49ers let Aaron Banks play through his lame duck year. They would have wanted to re-sign him. I think they would have done it before that season. Our tea delivery is here. I needed some tea. Thank you very much. Perfect. Is it really hot? Nice. All right. We appreciate it. Tea has come. Oh, it's a horse on the cup. I love it. I'm going to let it wait, and you're going to see some of the steam coming off here for a few minutes, but my throat is a little bit sore. Wintry conditions as it is. Anyway, Aaron Banks, I think, had not been great for the 49ers. They let him play through the lame duck year, which is one hint that they're probably not going to re-sign him. They typically have gone cheaper at the guard positions anyway. They like rookie contract guys there. They haven't signed a big money player at guard. The 49ers, as opposed to what they do at center, where they have signed free agents, they have drafted and developed guards. Now, I don't know which way this is going to go. You could see Dominic Pooney slide over to the left side and play left guard. And maybe if they draft a tackle, Colton McKivitz kicks in from right tackle to right guard. There are several different permutations and possibilities here. Some might even involve Spencer Burford just straight up taking over for Aaron Banks at the left guard position. But one of the possibilities that I don't see is the 49ers paying several million to Aaron Banks after it was Banks and Jake Brendel who struggled most on this offensive line at left guard and center over the course of the past year. So I would say no on an Aaron Banks return to the 49ers. Moving further down the list, Khalil Davis. They traded for Davis. I mean, it was just a 7th round kind of pick swap there or whatever it was. It wasn't an expensive price. Interior defensive lineman, explosive tackle from the Texans, but he ended up not playing all too much for the 49ers. Now, this is one where he could theoretically, if they did like what they saw, he's a tier above a guy that you give a futures contract. So a reserve futures contract, those are the ones you award as soon as the season's done to expiring free agents who think they're not going to have much of a market in the offseason. So you give them that futures contract, and then they'll be with you at least through the offseason until you decide to cut them. Khalil Davis, I think, is a little bit above that level. So he wasn't really a qualifier for a reserve futures contract, but he might be at a spot where if he enjoyed his time in San Francisco, if he feels there's still some development that can happen under Chris Kasarik and the 49ers do want him back, he might sign a one-year deal for close to the league minimum. He was playing on $1.65 million this past year with a little bit of guaranteed money. $350,000. That was a deal signed with the Texans. So obviously they viewed him as a tier above some of those futures contracts that you give out. But I'm really not sure since we just didn't see all too much of Khalil Davis. Chris Conley, 49ers wideout, veteran wideout, is going to be an unrestricted free agent. If they could fit him under the salary cap structure, and he only made 1.5 last year, if they could fit him, they'll be happy to have Chris Conley back. He's one of the better gunners in football, and they're not looking to lose good weapons on special teams. So I'd predict a yes on Chris Conley. Then they've got the punter, Pat O'Donnell, who was brought in to fill in for Mitch Wishnowsky. Now, in the case of Wishnowsky, he was dealing with a knee over the course of the season. So there have been some injury issues with Wishnowsky. I don't know exactly where he's at in his recovery, but Pat O'Donnell wasn't bad for the 49ers. He did punt it to the end zone in that one game. When was it? Was that it might have been the Rams game where the 49ers just lost a lot of valuable field position. It was kind of a tractor pull. So that was disappointing. What I wonder about in terms of the specialists is how much did the holding inconsistency hurt Jake Moody this past year? Because we know that the high ankle sprain was something that seemed very correlated with his kicking struggles before and after the injury, but people don't talk about the holding issues as much. And Pat O'Donnell, it's always the punter. So in this case, it was the backup punter, Pat O'Donnell. He's doing the holding on some of these field goals. And I don't know if that was consistent or if that was good for the 49ers. It's something that, unless you're a kicking specialist, a field goal specialist, it's something that you're probably not going to be able to answer. So the 49ers have two questions at punter. First, A, Mitch Wishnowsky's long-term health. And then B, how is the entire unit of specialists working together? And if either of those two is not in a good spot when you answer it, like if Wishnowsky's health isn't good, well, yes, then you really have to start thinking about a long-term shakeup. And then if that group of specialists has not been working together and there are still some questions about Mitch Wishnowsky and his health moving forward, that's when you start talking about blowing up the entire special teams room, like the three specialists. I think Tabor Pepper is going to stay a long snapper, but there are questions about Jake Moody's future, and there are obviously questions right now about the future of punter, given the fact that we didn't see Mitch Wishnowsky for the back portion of the season. All right, time to try some of this tea. That is hot. I had a very tiny sip. We're going to have to wait for a couple more players. We're working our way through. Kickoff is coming, in about 15 minutes, I would say. Currently 1:20. Well, actually, yeah, kickoff is coming at 1:30 on Pacific time. So I think 1:35. I'm on Central time as we speak. Texans and the Chiefs. We're moving down the list of free agents. Hopefully you guys are getting some good background, some good intel. There's a lot of free agents that we have to get through, but we're going to make it before kickoff. It's going to be great. Deshaun Gibson. I don't think the 49ers will bring him back. They had to plug a hole this past season with the veteran safety. He's going to be 35 years old. He saw some time at the very end, but it did seem that after the 2024 season, they were ready to move on, get younger. Then Jair Brown really struggled, and I get it that it changed the whole complexion alongside the Hufanga injury. I just don't see them using a 90-man roster spot on a 35-year-old safety over the course of the offseason. We'll see if Deshaun is still going to be going strong, trying to play past this season, but I would say no, at least on an immediate re-sign. Eric Saubert, I would also say no. I think that he was there to plug a hole for a year. I think they're going to try to take a swing in the draft again at tight end. Saubert was not a particularly plus player for the 49ers, not somebody that compelled them to bring him back. Rock Ya-Sin, it was an interesting year for him. Saw a little bit of time at the cornerback position. He's a veteran who's accomplished a little bit in this league, but it would surprise me, especially if they're going to try to rack up on some of the younger guys. It'd surprise me if they brought back a corner who's going to be 29 years old. Moving forward, Charlie Heck, the right tackle, actually did a heck of a job, pun intended. Thought he did a good job filling in for the 49ers down the stretch of the season. Last couple of games, they had Charlie Heck. He was there alongside Austin Pleasance. Pleasance is going to be an exclusive rights free agent. Charlie Heck has been in the league for a while. He's 29, unrestricted free agent. Hey, if they like them in the building, if they think there's some good tackle depth they can keep there for close to the league minimum, that's what he made last year. Yeah, maybe Charlie Heck stays in the building. But he also had a chance to put some decent football on tape over the course of the past 2 weeks, and that may earn him a $2 or $3 million deal. And that probably would be some territory that the 49ers would be unwilling to cross over into. So I'm going to say no for Charlie Heck, just because I think that was a desperation ad, as well as he did play. And as well as he did play, that does mean that he might get a little bit more interest from elsewhere. Again, offensive line talent in this league is hard to come by at this point. So that typically drives prices for players who saw a little bit of playing time and good playing time up. Curtis Robinson is a restricted free agent. He was the 49ers' Walter Payton Man of the Year nominee. Tore his ACL. I think Curtis is going to be available on a prove-it deal this next season because of that injury. He was looking really good before it, so that was a tough one for the Stanford product. I do think that they bring Curtis Robinson back. Nick McLeod depends on the new special teams coordinator. He's been a special teams ace in his career, DB. They brought him in about 2/3 of the way through the season. Played a little bit, saw some nickelback action for the 49ers. He's a minimum player, I think. I don't know if he did all that much to show more. So I think there's a chance they bring back Nick, but I think it will depend on special teams. Patrick Taylor Jr., the running back, I don't think they're going to bring him back, but it will depend on numbers for the 49ers when it comes to free agency and the draft with the running back position. On the 90-man roster, you have more room. Taylor, I think, ran hard, put up over 100 yards in that season finale for San Francisco, but was not great in the pass game. And that's why it's tough with these running backs. That's why I think you do have to have star power at the position to really allow the offense to continue churning along at high efficiency. This one is fascinating. Jalen Moore. I thought Moore put some good tape, good play on tape this year from the tackle position. Jalen started his career with the 49ers playing some right tackle in 2021. He was a 5th-round pick out of Western Michigan. Got benched mid-game. It was actually a Jimmy Garoppolo touchdown pass to Brandon Ayuk in Jacksonville, on which Jalen Moore got beat around the right side. And the 49ers said, we can't have this on the right side. We'd rather have Tom Compton. So we didn't hear much from Jalen Moore over the course of the next few years. He resurfaced as the backup left tackle to Trent Williams this year. And after Trent went down for the season, Jalen played well until he himself got hurt too. If Jalen hadn't gotten hurt, I would be almost sure he'd be in line for a multi-million-dollar contract. As it stands right now, I'm not as sure, and I think he might fall within the 49ers' spending capabilities of retaining as a swing tackle. So I'm really on the fence with Jalen Moore. I would say no, just because I know that he's going to have some demand for him, for his services, but it's tough because injuries are tough for the players, but ended up being something that often benefits teams in situations like this. And that might be the case if the 49ers can get Jalen Moore back out of the discount. Then we have Talanoa Hufanga. I know some of you have been waiting for a little while to get to this one. So Talanoa is in a similar boat as Dre Greenlaw, right? You've got a player, decorated player, Fans have his jersey. Fans have Dre Greenlaw's jersey. All pro Talanoa Hufanga back in 2022. Tore his ACL in 23. Rejoined the team a few games into 2024. Didn't look like himself in that very initial action, but then tore a ligament in his wrist. And because of that, he was on the shelf for a long period of 2024 after the ACL return. When he did finally return, Hufanga had a club to protect his wrist. Looked great in his first game back. Didn't look as good after that. And I think it's kind of a wash of a year just because of the ACL recovery and then the club. Two different injuries, dropped an interception against the Rams with the club on, which is really tough. I think he might be a prove it deal kind of guy. And if he is, I think the 49ers would be happy to re-sign Talanoa Hufanga. Elijah Mitchell, it says he's an unrestricted free agent, but I believe that Elijah Mitchell's contract will toll because he didn't play this past season. That's something I still have to double check on. I promise I will. Here are your exclusive rights free agents. So the rest of the way, these are guys the 49ers can re-sign with hardly any issue. That means that they can't play anywhere else if the 49ers tender a contract. So somebody like Jake Tonjes, I'm sure they'll bring him back. Alex Barrett's been a valuable member of the practice squad. They can bring him back as an exclusive rights free agent. Sam Okawanu, he was good for the 49ers this year. They'll bring him back. Jalen Graham, Braden Willis, both of those seem like no-brainers. Jordan Mason, though, he is a restricted free agent. And you try to stock as much talent as you can in the running back room, but I do think that there will be reasonable limits of the RFA tender that the 49ers will give Jordan Mason. You could give him the original round tender. See the RFA tender amounts here, just so I could give you guys the prices for these in 2025. The projected tender amounts are, wow, they've gotten expensive. For a first round tender, it's $7.3 million. For a second round tender, $5.2 million. And then for the right of first refusal, $3.2 million. So say that you tender Jordan Mason at the second round level, that you'd be committing to paying $5.2 million to him. If another team decides to sign him for more, that or more, then you would be entitled to a second round pick. If you want to be extra sure that he doesn't leave, the first round tender is $7.3 million. The right of first refusal tender is only $3.2 million. But I think Mason, the runner that he is, has him at a higher price tag than just the right of first refusal. I think it would take at least the $5 million. The 49ers willing to pay $5 million for Jordan Mason. That I'm not sure of because he's not the best target in the pass game. And that's really important for San Francisco at that position. So for Mason, boy, he ran so well last year, though. And he's such a great pairing with those other guys as the closer. I say that they tender him at the second round level unless they can find a cheaper long-term agreement with him before that's better for their cap situation. But my gut feeling tells me that Mason stays. Evan Anderson, Austin Pleasance, both exclusive rights free agents. Mason Pline, also one. He's already signed a futures contract with the 49ers. Perfect. I just wrapped it all up. Who stays and who goes? And it's exactly 1:30. So it's time to go watch some football. Anyway, Texans, Chiefs. I know Draymond Green picked the Texans to win. I think the Texans cover. 9.5 is tough, though. I just don't think that CJ Stroud has been playing as well as he needs to play this year. So I'm going to pick the Chiefs to win this first game, but I do think the Chiefs will lose to whichever team they play, Baltimore or Buffalo in the AFC Championship game. Commanders and Lions, also too big of a spread. Jaden Daniels is the better QB in this game. The Lions had the better team. I think the Lions win this one at home narrowly. I don't like the spreads on either game, guys. Kansas City by 9.5, Detroit by 9. I think those are too large. I think we're going to see two close games today, but I do think the home favorites are going to win. I'm going to give my predictions for tomorrow, but hey, if I can't make it by tomorrow, might as well give them right now. Eagles over the Rams, Bills over the Ravens. So I'm picking one underdog, and that's going to be the Bills, actually. The Ravens are road favorites over Buffalo. All right. Thanks for watching. We will talk to you soon. Go enjoy these games.